It's a funny thing about many hunters, myself included, that no matter the country of our birth or how good the hunting in our own backyard, we tend to daydream about hunts in far-off lands for exotic game. Professional hunter Ivan Carter grew up around game, and since his teens often found himself in close proximity of thousands of Cape buffalo as he roamed the bush of his native Zimbabwe. Yet the young Ivan Carter loved to read stories of the American West and was fascinated by stories of Indians and their horseback hunts for the great shaggy bison that colored the prairies black. Conversely, Ivan's good friend and client, Guy Gorney, spent many nights as a young man growing up in Illinois reading about the fierce black buffalo that called Africa home and wondered if he would ever see and hunt a bull of his own. Eventually, Guy fulfilled his African dreams, including taking the long-dreamed-of Cape buffalo. This year, Guy and Ivan decided it was time to make Ivan's wish to hunt his very own bison in the hills of Wyoming come true. Join Ivan Carter and Guy Gorney as they experience a double bison hunt as we open the pages of Trigicon's World of Sports Afield.
Trigicon's World of Sports Afield has been brought to you by Trigicon, Brilliant Aiming Solutions, DSC, the Dallas Safari Club, Ruger Firearms, Hornady Manufacturing, Accurate, Deadly, Dependable, the Wildlife Gallery Custom Taxidermy Studio, Leica Sport Optics, Boyd Harness Company, Global Rescue, anytime, anywhere. The Wild Sheep Foundation. And by Les Chameaux, handcrafted since 1927.
You know, as a little boy growing up, it's kind of interesting. A lot of people that I've guided in Africa will tell me that growing up they would read about Africa. Well, exactly the opposite was happening. As I was growing up, I was reading about cowboys and Indians. I was reading about the Wild West, and obviously a giant part of that culture was the American bison. What an iconic animal. In fact, so iconic that it's actually in the flag of the state of Wyoming.
The buffalo has to be one of the great icons of the West. Just truly a magnificent part of the wildlife scene. Wyoming, what better place than the land which in yesteryear had millions and millions of buffalo roaming in it. We're hopefully going to see a lot of buffalo in the next few days, and man, right here, the Wyoming flag, the buffalo just as broad as day on there. So, you know, this has got the makings of what's going to be a great adventure, and a great little piece of history is going to be discovered right here.
What really made this even cooler was the fact that I was going to be accompanied by my good friend Guy Gorney. Guy and I had hunted Africa on several occasions. We'd been in camps together over there. We've hunted elephant together. We've been together hunting buffalo, and you know, as much as Guy related to me that as a young kid he dreamed of his African safaris, you know, as a young kid I dreamed of one day coming out to the West and taking part in the cowboy Western culture and the whole West. It's so rich in history, and yet it's history that's so delicate, it's very often lost.
I knew as we drove onto the ranch property itself, the attention to detail that they put into this facility is really amazing. The little chuck wagon as we drove in, and the wooden fencing and things like that. I was really looking forward to getting out there and seeing the bison that they did have, and knowing that as a hunter, these dollars that I would spend here are going to go into the conservation of the animals, the habitat, and expanding.
Jake, hi Ivan. How are you, man? Good. How are you? Good to see you. Nice to meet you. Awesome. Good to be here. Yeah.
Jake Keller was going to be guiding us, and we met with him. Just a guy who really has his roots here in Wyoming. A guy who spent his life out here with a great passion for horses and cattle and the wildlife and hunting, and just the perfect guy that you want to have as a guide. And as a guide myself, I know that it's very important to be passionate about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and Jake's got that in spades.
We've been here at Brush Creek Ranch Outfitters for about an hour, just driving around the property, taking a look, seeing what we could see this first day out. Seeing some awesome bison, some mule deer. I had bison on my list for some time, but never really got around to it. And when Ivan called and said this opportunity was available, went ahead and made plans to get out here. And boy, sure glad we're here. It's awesome. It's breathtakingly beautiful out here. The landscape, the wildlife, it's a great place to be. Glad I'm here.
Guy and Ivan start their hunt for the American bison when Trigicon's World of Sports Afield returns. The Hunting Tradition, brought to you by Dallas Safari Club.
I'm Diana Rupp, Editor-in-Chief of Sports Afield magazine, with this week's installment of The Hunting Tradition. In today's Africa, the lion is under threat from loss of habitat and from extermination by locals who don't want lions killing their sheep and goats. Regulated safari hunting, on the other hand, is a big plus for the lion. The economic advantage created by lion hunting is one of the few things that creates an incentive for people who live in lion country to keep the big cats around. Responsible hunters target only lions that are 6 years of age or older. By then, lions are past their prime breeding years, and removing them has little effect on the overall population. Experienced hunters and PHs can tell the approximate age of a lion using cues such as head shape, fur quality, and even the color of its nose. By holding out for lions who have lived a long life in the wild, hunters can help to ensure that the African lion will roam the savannas of Africa for decades to come. You can learn more about the hunting tradition in every issue of Sports Afield magazine and at sportsafield.com.
The West wouldn't be the West without some horseback riding, and so what we're going to do, we're just getting Guy up onto his horse, getting the rifle in the scabbard, and we're going to take off up into the hills and see what we can find out there. But just starting off on horseback, I think is part of the whole experience of hunting a buffalo. Such an iconic animal, and to get on a horse, such an iconic part of what conquered the West. I think it's just a great beginning to our first day out here. So it's going to be an exciting day, nothing that I've ever been part of before, and we'll get out there and see what it's like. We've got a few bulls that look like they've got great potential in the little valley ahead of us. What we're going to do is, the wind is coming in this direction. They're not too fast as long as we're on the horses. So we're going to come up and get up into the rocks here and then leave the horses and see if we can make an approach and see what happens. So, man, they look larger than life when you get out here on the ground with them. It's pretty awesome.
I think what we'll do is we'll sneak around here and climb up on this rock. We got a real good vantage point, and we know them bulls are just right over the ridge here. And we'll sneak up there and get a good look at him, and see if we got a good approach to him. And there's some really good bulls out here, and if we see what we like, we'll try and make a stalk on one.
Great.
And sneak in there and try and get a shot.
Super.
See what happens.
Man, this is going to be pretty cool. Awesome. Walking up in very scenic terrain is something that I do a lot of in Africa, but certainly not in North America. And what a treat to get up into these wild and rugged mountains, and even more so to get up in these wild, rugged mountains and look at the buffalo. Such an iconic animal in such iconic scenery. I can't even tell you what an incredible experience this is for just a little old African PH. Man, I never thought that I would get on a horse and ride up into a mountain and look over buffalo. This is pretty awesome right here.
Those docile buffalo that we saw the night before that let us get so close in the truck Once they're on horseback and dismounted, they became more like a game animal and started to move off and made sure that there was a certain distance between us, and it was not as easy as I thought it was going to be going into it. We had to use all the tricks in the hunter's bag here to really get close enough to these animals. We had to use the terrain, watch our wind. We had 4 buffalo kind of together, so you had eyes facing each and every other direction. So it was not an easy walk up to and shoot sort of thing. We did have to use all those tools to get within a decent range for a double gun to take one of these animals.
Guy gets closer to the shaggy wanderer. His hunt continues when Trijicon's World of Sports Afield returns.
This bull has just rolled, and he got up and he looked back to where we were. And so he's got no idea that we're following him, which is good. We're just moving up into this broken country. I think we're going to get pretty close. This is cool.
And in true hunting tradition, the stress on the guide as we try to get in on the animal that I was looking for, and keeping ourselves hidden from those that were milling around. I had to smile to myself a little bit as I watched Jake kind of stress as we try to get ourselves into position to preserve the opportunity to get to the one we wanted. Jake had done a great job getting us in close. I had asked for something around 50 yards, and we were right in there, 50, 55 perhaps. Had me scoot into position, took a look at the animal that we had targeted, and then scooched forward and then stood up to take the shot. Buffalo is down, but even though the buffalo may not be free-ranging, the herd instinct is still very strong. They've surrounded the bull, they've hooked him. We've been here probably 15 or 20 minutes already, and they're not moving off. They're bellowing, snorting, fighting amongst themselves, and still fairly relaxed, even though we're probably about 40 yards away from them. Frankly, I'm a little nervous about having my back to them.
That's some beef right there. Oh! They don't look this big, do they? Yeah. They really don't look this big. Look at the size of this guy. I mean, that's 18 inches around. Well, Guy, you know, when we set out to come here to Brush Creek Ranch, it certainly, I wasn't expecting something like this. I wasn't expecting the beauty of the scenery. I wasn't expecting an animal this big.
I still can't get over the size. I mean, it's got to be 18 inches or so at the head. The horns are much bigger than I thought. I can't believe the depth of the height on these things and the sturdiness of the animal. This thing took a lot of punishment before he went down.
Absolutely, and you know, with a 470, that we've seen what a 470 can do to a lot of African game, and you know, I think what to me is the most shocking is just the size of these horns. You know, the head and the body is so big, it actually ends up making the horns look small, but they're actually big. Man, well, man, what an experience, Guy, and I'm happy to share some hunting with you this side of the ocean for a change.
Guy's bull is down, and it's Ivan's turn to relive the Old West when Trijicon's World of Sports Afield returns. And now, Inside the Hunt, brought to you by Hornady. The salvation of the American bison is a familiar theme that is played out in the game fields all across the globe. With the explosion of human populations and the loss of traditional habitat due to human encroachment into wilderness areas, game animals are struggling to hold their own and are in need of help. That help is at hand, and it comes from the hunters who are dedicated to assuring both preservation of game country and the welfare of the game that lives there. The bison is another example of the great truth which says, if it pays, it stays. Hunters' dollars assure local people, be it a rancher in Wyoming or a tribesman in Tanzania, that the wildlife in their area and the financial benefits provided by regulated sport hunting are the pathway to a better future for both humans and game. Another example of why hunters are, and will continue to be, the backbone of true wildlife conservation.
Having had such a great experience the day before and really being overwhelmed by the size of these animals, I was really looking forward to my turn, and early that morning it was a little bit cold, a lot of frost on the ground, and you got a bit of a bite in the tips of your fingers as you went riding up the hills, up into the hills there. But you know, you soon forgot about all of that. I mean, we came across this big herd of deer, and you know, they were just watching the horses go by. Somehow, as soon as you get on horseback, a lot of the animals don't see you as much of a threat, and so you know, it's a very carefree feeling. So Jake, we're just going to walk down there.
Yes, sir. I think we'll just walk right down.
Cool.
Kind of duck off in this draw.
Cool. It's not every day you get to take a double out of a scabbard, I will say that. And we've got a nice bull down in the draw here. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get up to him, but we'll certainly give him a crack. It wasn't long till we saw a couple of bulls moving over a ridge, and so we got off our horses and we snuck up on these bulls, and you know, every bull looked huge to me. I mean, after what I'd seen in Guy's bull, you know, I'm not a guy who measures by inches. I'm a guy who measures in experience, and man, they look great to me. But you know, Jake assured me that there were bigger bulls on the place, and so you know, we continued to hunt and let those guys go. And before long, sure enough, we did actually see some bulls that were probably going to be worthwhile approaching, and they were in a little draw. There were some trees for some great cover, so you know, we started to walk in there, and it wasn't long before we realized that there was more than just one there.
The wind is perfect. Of course, this closer bull, and there's nothing between us and them than just sage. He's the smaller of the two. Back one's out at about 120 yards, and he's definitely much bigger. That's the beauty of hunting with a double rifle. You've got to get close, and it's just that much more.
Sure enough, after about probably an hour and a half or possibly closer to 2 hours of kind of just waiting, biding our time, letting the guys relax while we crawled a little bit closer, we got to the point where we certainly weren't going to get any closer. The grass was real short where we were. The bison were on the other side of the clearing. So Jake allowed me to go ahead on my own and do the last sort of 50 or 60 yards on my own. So I kind of crawled forward, and man, I'll tell you, it's a whole different deal when you're on the front line. I'm used to doing that with someone else and sending them forward to make the shot, and suddenly, now it was my time. You know, I crawled in there, and when I got to what I estimated was probably 60 yards, something like that, I decided that was probably as close as I was going to get safely. I should probably stop, and as soon as he presented a good broadside, take the shot. You know, everybody's seen photos of bison, everybody's seen the archival photos of millions and millions. It was kind of 10 to 15 million of them in the mid-1800s, and they came down to just very, very few. And you don't realize from a photograph just how big they are. I mean, the size of this mop on the top of his head, just the character and the size of these horns, it's a magnificent trophy. You know, in today's America, it's very, very tough to get a truly free-range bison permit. So most bison like this one are managed herds. They're in areas where you're probably not going to fail on your hunt, but certainly as such an iconic animal, it's great to come into an area like this where through great management, they've got very, very mature bulls here. They're bulls that are past breeding, bulls that have got no use to the breeding program anymore, and just what better bulls to be taken as trophy animals. And it's the hunters' dollars as a result of those trophy animals being taken that go into preserving more and more range. And who knows, some of the ground that's under Angus cattle today in the next decade is hopefully going to be under giant herds of buffalo like this. And you know, it's one of those things that right here at Brush Creek that they're working very hard to do, is get it right back to what it used to be 100 years ago. And as I say, hopefully in the next decade or so, you're going to see hundreds of buffalo like this roaming around in areas like this, and it really will be a true free-range hunt in years to come. After every hunt, there comes a moment where you really just sit and reflect back on the hunt and where it took place and how it took place. And you know, you reflect back on what it means to hunt a particular animal. And in this case, the restoration of habitats, the restoration of trout streams, and everything that means from a natural habitat perspective. The fact that possibly right where we were walking, right where those rivers are flowing, will one day see great herds of bison again. And just as surely as hunters' dollars are valuable, they're certainly no more valuable than right here on the ground at Brushy Creek Ranch.
Trigicon's World of Sports Afield has been brought to you by Trigicon, Brilliant Aiming Solutions, DSC, the Dallas Safari Club, Ruger Firearms, Hornady Manufacturing, Accurate, Deadly, Dependable, the Wildlife Gallery Custom Taxidermy Studio, Leica Sport Optics, Boyd Harness Company, Global Rescue, anytime, anywhere, the Wild Sheep Foundation, and by Les Chameaux, handcrafted since 1927. Closed captioning by Les Chameaux, available at orbis.com/Les Chameaux.